This is Pastor Byron from Life Point Church in Lexington, North Carolina. A true story. In New York City, a local businessman by the name of Joseph Richardson owned a very narrow strip of land on Lexington Avenue. When I say narrow, it was 5 feet wide and 104 feet long. Adjacent to this tiny lot was another normal sized lot. Both of the lots were empty. A man by the name of Hyman Sarner decided that he was going to build an apartment. He was going to buy the property, the large normal lot, size lot. He was going to purchase the property and build an apartment building. Well, in order to build his apartment building, he felt that he would just go ahead and purchase the tiny lot, 104 by 5, at the same time. He offered Richardson, the owner, $1,000 for the lot. Richardson was offended. He thought that was a ridiculous price. He made a counter proposal. He said, "I'll sell it to you, but I'll sell it to you for 5, not 1. Well, that made Garner mad. And so Garner said, "I'm not giving you anything for it. You're just stuck with it. I'm going to build my apartment building." And he did. He built it with windows facing the main avenue for this lot, and that was Lexington Avenue. It was only as they were drawing up the final plans did they come to the realization that lot, that narrow lot, was fine as long as nothing was built on it. But if anybody tried to build anything on it, it was going to obscure the view from those apartments. And so Garner went back to Richardson and he said, "Okay, I'll give you the 5,000. Well, at this point, Richardson's already mad again, and he said, "No, you won't, because I'm not selling it to you for any price." Garner said, "Fine, I didn't want to purchase it in the first place." So he went on and he built his apartment building. They were about halfway through when Richardson decided he was going to build an apartment building on his lot. But now remember, it's only 104 feet wide and 5 feet wide and 104 feet long. So he had to build a very tiny building, 4 stories high, 1 apartment on each floor. That was fine, except there was not room for an elevator, so you had to get up and down by a set of stairs. And the stairs were so narrow, you could only go one at a time. So if you're on the first floor trying to get to the 4th floor, if anybody's coming down, somebody's going to have to give. So it was a problem that was just not resolving itself. Garner, who owned the apartment building, came back and he said, "Name your price, I'll pay." Richardson at this point, so angry, he said, "There is no price. I'm not selling." For 15 years, Richardson lived in the 4th floor apartment building, 4th floor of the little house. Each of the levels, he had the most tiny of equipment, tiny stove, refrigerators. It was ridiculous and unbelievable that anybody even rented. But it was New York City. They were eager to find something, and so there are always people renting. After almost 15 years, Richardson died. When he died, the newspaper journalists got a hold of the story. They labeled the tiny little 4-story house the Spite Building, saying that Richardson built, and he probably did, he built the building only out of spite against Garner. I'm only sharing this story because it reminds me of the teaching of Jesus in the New Testament. We obviously have a crisis of forgiveness and a crisis of being peaceful and a crisis of just listening when we do not agree. We are at that point right now. We've been at that point other times. As a matter of fact, you can go back to the very beginning in Genesis. We were in those times. There are times when people refuse to give. But Jesus utters his words not for people, but for believers. And in Matthew 6, Jesus said, "For if you forgive people when they sin against you, when they do you wrong, your heavenly Father will forgive you of your sin. But if you do not forgive others, even when they have wronged you," Jesus said, "you will not be forgiven either." I think sometimes we miss the teaching of those two verses. Jesus is talking about salvation. Jesus is saying, if you do not forgive others as I have forgiven you, then I will not forgive you. Believers, it has always been important. But it continues to be important that we practice forgiveness. We may not always agree. That's fine. We may disagree. That's fine. But don't be disagreeable. Don't be ugly. Don't be unkind. I'm reminded of Richardson. Don't be spiteful. He lived a bitter and angry life. And he died in his 4-story building alone. Do not listen to Richardson. Do not follow his teaching. Listen to the words of Jesus and follow those.